Okay, so good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining the webinar tonight. Tonight is about social intelligence, and I have a special guest with me, Alina, and she will introduce herself more later. I want to start with doing a poll first, yeah? So doing a poll, and my question is going to be launched here. So can you see the question? So have you done something awkward in a social situation before? So is it yes, plenty of times, quite a few of you there. Yes, only one, no, not two times, not that I know of, so maybe it's a yes. And I can see that definitely no, there is none. Okay, so that sets the scene, I think, for this. Let me show the result, yeah. Okay, can you see the
Wow.
results? Yeah, so half of you say yes, another few say yes a few times, and then not that I know of, and definitely none that says no. Yeah, so we've all been in that situation where we've done something awkward, and today we want to discuss how can we be better at that. Yeah, I want to share my screen now. Share my screen. My screen. Okay. Why terus feedback, Pak? Okay, can you see my screen now? Yeah. Okay, great.
Can see.
Awesome. Yeah. So to that question about awkward social situation, I wanted to share one social awkward situation that that I was in the past. So I was in this meeting, and there were people from many countries, and one of the guy was from China. So from China itself. And my usual question when I meet someone new is where you're from and what does your family do, how many children you have, right? All these simple question, and I asked him how many children you have, and as soon as I said it, obviously people from China at that time were allowed to have only one children, and I thought, oh my God, I cannot believe I just asked that question, and he politely answered, I have one daughter. Okay, but at that time I felt like so embarrassed that I was asking this very insensitive question to him, and therefore that was one of my awkward moments that I do not really want to repeat again. And therefore after that I made a point to understand better about other people's culture in being prepared for meetings like that, so that I don't put myself in that kind of situation. And today is the episode about social intelligence, and essentially this is part of the step-by-step plan in terms of your career progression. And most of you have seen this before because you've attended my other webinars. And where this sits in is where under the image, personal branding, and your networking. So I feel that the social intelligence incorporate this part. How we portray ourselves, how we network, all that requires social intelligence, which is why I feel this is an important topic, and I wanted to do it together with Alina. And at this point, we'll let Alina introduce herself. I know Katrina has met Alina before, but the rest I think haven't.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Doctor, for having me here, and everyone for, coming in on a, on a weekday evening. It's such a pleasure to have all of you here. Well, I'm Alina. I've spent decades doing different things. And in a nutshell, I'm actually a brand and marketing, enthusiast. I call it enthusiast because there's still so much to learn. And I'm a trainer, and I'm also a consultant. I started my career in the hospitality industry. And it's interesting because the hospitality industry, it goes both ways. You serve people from all walks of life, from different cultures. I've traveled extensively for the past at least half my life. And not only do you serve people, but you also dine in different places. You can dine with different people from all walks of life. So I'm very, very familiar with awkward situations. I know what it feels like when people don't understand my culture or step on my toes. So, I've got different experiences, and I really wanted to share with you a little bit about social intelligence, because I think everyone is learning, and we can all do, better at getting to know people. But I think most importantly, Doctor and everybody here, social intelligence is actually for us more than other people. And I think we'll talk a little bit about why it's important later. But I'm so happy you all are here, because social intelligence is actually for ourselves and our self-improvement. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Alina, for that introduction. And as you mentioned, we are going to be discussing it in more detail. And you already had a little bit of intro to this. And the first question is obviously, what is social intelligence? We hear a lot about IQ. And then the next one that came into vogue was EQ, about emotional intelligence. So we are very familiar with IQ, EQ, and this is now SQ, and it's not Singapore Airlines. So therefore, what is social intelligence, Alina?
Okay, so I mean, just in a nutshell, social intelligence is someone's ability to understand and interact with people. And just to let some of you know, it is a concept that's been around for a very long time. In the 1920s, there was a gentleman called Edward Thorndike, and he was the one who coined the term social intelligence. That's the simple way of defining it. However, I'd like to add on, because as I experience being with people and sort of observing, I would like to add on that social intelligence is also about us understanding that safety alarm in our nervous system. Because I'm glad, we're amongst a doctor here, because I think we need to look at ourselves first. I believe social intelligence is our ability to say, okay, I feel safe in an environment, in a social environment. And I'm not talking about having confidence or, being shy. I'm talking about wanting to be in an environment where you can actually socialize with people. Number one, it's your safety, Number two is actually, how safe are you making other people feel around you? And I think the higher your social intelligence is, you would be able to make people feel calm, and you'd want them to tell their story to you. And I think that's really important that today that's the takeaway, that safety alarm within yourself and making people feel safe. So social intelligence, if you have good social intelligence skills, you are a good listener. You love talking to people, you have great conversational skills. But I think the most important is leaving that positive impression to people and respecting yourself. So yeah, I think I hope I've made that simple to understand.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. I didn't realize that this term is actually quite old, from 1920s. I thought it's only this decade type thing.
Been around for a long while, because social etiquette, and we'll talk a little bit about that because I think there's some pastries coming up later. Social etiquette has been around for a very, very long time. So yeah, this is not new.
Yeah, and I think maybe this came into focus more because now we are dealing more globally. We are being not forced, but we are exposed to different culture, and suddenly we realize there are different ways of doing things, and then we are not comfortable with it. And if you're not ready to be learning about other people's culture, then you just think, oh, it's not my thing. And retract from it, which then limits your exposure to people around you. And certainly
right.
for me and like you, Alina,
Yes.
being away from Malaysia, living in other countries forces us to learn about other people's culture, and that opened the mind to, okay, not necessarily seeing something different as bad, to seeing something different and then assessing, is this okay within that new environment and not within our old environment.
That's right. That's right.
Yep, yep. And so the next question, why does it matter so much?
Wow. Actually, oh, that's a really good question. And I think the first thing people might say is like, oh, it matters because, I need to impress people around me, and, I need to be more confident. But you know what? Social intelligence matters because it is a key to happiness, actually, from my point of view. Because one of the things that I do cover in my trainings, for example, is this study that Harvard continues doing, which is on adult happiness. It's been going around for about like 84 years. I think it's going into the third generation of people, where humans need connection. We as humans cannot be lonely, yeah, because loneliness triggers anxiety, it triggers fear and so many things. And for us to have the ability to connect to people, whether it's a social gathering or our families or even the lady at the grocery store, it matters in wanting to live a more meaningful and happy life. So that is the deep answer as why social intelligence matters, because without this skill, it could be very lonely for individuals. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for maintaining that connection, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, and that's true. I've been traveling recently. Some of you might know I was in London. I was in Athens. So London was more personal to visit my friend, and then Athens was more work. And when I was in London, I realized that I was thinking, why does London have such good memories for me? And it wasn't London itself, it was the people that I was with. So initially when my friend everyone is working, right? So while I was on my own exploring London again, it was nice, but it wasn't great. It was only when they were free and we could meet for dinner and all that, that's when it became great again, because it's the human connection, and it's not about, and it wasn't the place itself. So what you mentioned about the key to happiness is the connection, how we socialize with people. I can totally relate to that. Yeah. For the audience, in case you have any question, obviously you can unmute and ask question, or you can also type in the chat and we'll go through your question as we go along the webinar tonight. Yeah. Okay. So to the next question. So we learn what it is. We know now why is it important. How can we be better at this? How can we be more better?
Well, I think as individuals, I would say curiosity is really important. And I know it's not easy because for many of us who've traveled, we have to remember the first time we traveled, it was very uncomfortable, right? The first time we ate pasta, the first time we had, balsamic vinegar, the first time we did all sorts of things, it's very uncomfortable. So there's always resistance. And for those of us who are still new at getting to know different cultures, either, it's an African culture or Korean culture, it's all about being curious, number one. We can be better at it by being curious. And secondly, to really be open. Yes, and open does not mean that, you have to go against your values or anything. It's all about wanting to listen. Because I mentioned the skill of social intelligence is listening to people versus putting on your belief and your value systems towards other people. So openness is critical. understanding that everybody has a different and what we call a map of the world is important. Because when the moment we think that we're always right, or our culture is right, or the way we do things is right, you've already closed a door. And what we want to do at being socially, intelligent is opening the door so people feel the love that you have, your curiosity. I think the first is openness and being curious. But like I mentioned at the beginning, that social safety button, where each one of us can actually start with, is really increasing our intuition to sort of see who do I feel warm towards. Okay, intuition doesn't come naturally for everybody, but it's very important, whether we're going out to the mama stall, or the waiter comes, or you go to the gas station and the gentleman wants to help you, fill in your gas station, your petrol. It's all about your intuition. So we can be better at sensing warm people. So there's warm people and there's cold people, for example. You can be better at it by just sensing, or even listing down, for example, people that you have a nice connection with, who make you feel good, who give you great energy. Right? Because even in any social gathering, even for Raya, Chinese New Year, Christmas, whatever it is, a company dinner, you need to have those senses up so that you can be more open to other people and people can be more open to you. You can also list down, situations or people that kind of make you, I call it the cold. So you got warm and then you got cold. You can be better at sensing people who don't have those great vibes. So that would actually really help you gauge, where do I go? Because the safety is in your hands, right? You're not forced to go and meet people. I see there's a question, Katrina.
Yeah, there's a question, Katrina.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks. Thanks. I have a question. So those who have cold and the warm and the cold vibes, right? I mean, yes, we kind of have this intuition or this sensing that we can feel it. But of course, when those situation that is welcoming and warm, of course you can be more approachable. You can approach them more and etc. But for those who you just feel that the cold vibes and all, what should you do? Should you retract, or how do you work on that, and stuff like that?
Katrina, can I ask you a question before I answer that?
Okay.
So I believe through your question you've experienced having these kind of cold people around.
Yeah.
How did you feel before you approached them during that social setting, or before you even went to the social setting? If you can share it with us.
When they are cold, is it?
I mean, was it a birthday party, or was it an office party? What was it?
No, I'm just asking in general because maybe it's not a new, because you can just feel the vibe, because I mean, they are not really strangers. They are like maybe, families, relatives, but you don't really see them a long time. Yeah, that's another thing. And maybe bosses, maybe they are like kind of warm, but they're just kind of, I mean, not to say warm, of course, they are quite warm during the interview. I mean, not like 100% warm, but, as there might be challenges along the way, and they may be a bit cold, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, sometimes it could be off days, of course.
Sure.
We ourselves do give negative vibes also sometimes. Yeah.
So it's interesting. Thank you for elaborating, Katrina, because I want to share something really important with everybody that I do share a lot, and I'm sure Doctor remembers that I often say, perception is projection. And for some that's quite might be a bit confusing, but perception, so whatever's going on in your head is actually projected to the people around you. So I'll just give you an example. Sometimes we can be quite nervous going to a party, or we immediately judge people without even getting to know them, or talking to them, and immediately it's already projected to them, and then they will actually automatically be very cold people, or not even want to be talkative to you. I'll give an example, which is everybody, I'm sure you've been in an elevator, right? Depending if you're coming back home from a very difficult day at work, someone might be irritating, they come in and they're just your energy is really bad, and then you look at them and in the elevator, it's like, oh, what an irritating person. Right? Literally, you say in your head, you don't know who they are, but you can sense that trip up 6 or 9 floors is very uncomfortable. They probably don't even want to talk to you. They don't even turn around. However, if you at another day when you're, much more friendly, and you feel good vibes, let's just say, a gentleman comes in and he's well dressed and he's smiling. It's like, wow, that guy's kind of cute. He's nice. And he might just go out the lift and say, see you later. Have a nice day. So these are things I want all of you to actually give this a shot after this webinar, where you project good things and people are actually a lot warmer to you. So that's one, which perception is projection. Okay. Number two, there are many, many ways we can actually build rapport while we're in social settings, such as mirroring and matching. So we can go that into another day. But just to answer your question, Katrina, like, when people are cold, you can actually warm up to them. And what this means is sometimes people want to be listened to. They need to be heard. So approaching them with empathy, and again, going back to perception and projection, projecting good things and, oh, they must have had a bad day. How are you doing? With your tonality and with your body language and the way you're speaking to them instead of, oh yeah, how are you? Okay, so tonality and the way you're interacting with them is really critical when it comes to social intelligence. So those are just a few things that I can share with you, Katrina, when you are confronted with people who have that sort of very cold mannerism, and you can feel that it's not so jiving. So you need to change yourself first before you get something that's a lot warmer.
Thanks for sharing, because I tend to be very, if you give me bad vibes, I give you bad vibes, that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, I can say my EQ wasn't like to that very high level. I also, I'm just learning as I go along.
Right. Doc, I think we have a question in the chat.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to it. Can you click?
I have it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I have the question. So there's a question by Hui Jen here. Hi. Right. Thank you for this. I used to think diversity is accepting differences and offering cultural differences. Okay. However, within the year, I've come to a new realization that it should be mirroring and copying the other culture. Human connections aren't built based on commonalities. What are your thoughts? Wow, that's interesting.
That's a very good question.
And statement as well. Wow.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, because I think if we come into a conversation or a social setting where we think we must have something in common, then we'll get along. So again, projecting that thing about having the same values. And we know that's not even possible, even for people who are within the same race as you, the same religion as you, or whatnot, even if people in your community are so different, right? So my thoughts are this. Again, going back to curiosity and opening the door and knowing that, look, it's never going to be having commonalities. It's all about learning and respecting the other culture. And I actually wanted to share with you a little bit about cultural behavior. So when I was in university, I was actually learning about social behavior and cultural organizations. And looking at your question, there are studies and frameworks that actually talk about culture differences in different countries. And I actually wanted to leave you with, I'm not sure if any one of you have heard of the Hofstede theory or framework. Has anyone heard of Hofstede before?
No.
Hofstede, Hoffsted, is it?
Yes. So I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to quickly, I'll leave you a link, everybody. Let me just, if you don't mind, just give me a few seconds.
Hofstede.
Okay. So so I have it. So I'll give you the link after I answer this question and share this with every one of you. Now, Gert Hofstede is very interesting because this was in the 70s. He came up with this theory. It's a cultural dimension theory. It's a framework that's very powerful, and it evolves. Okay. And I'd love it if you all, after I send you the link, take a look at it after this webinar, because it is really a great platform to learn about cultures and how they evolve. Now, Gert Hofstede, he actually created this cross-culture framework using 5 areas of analysis. The first is power distance. Second is called uncertainty avoidance. Third is individualism and collectivism. I'll go through each one. The other one is masculinity and femininity. Then there's short and long-term orientation. And the last one is indulgent and restraint. Okay, so I'll just quickly go through it because we can actually have many webinars on this topic. It's really interesting. So the first one is actually power distance. So what he did was, through as many countries as he was able to research, you know, all his team members, he actually looked at these dimensions, and for every country, he evaluated and analyzed where do they sit when it comes to power distance. So number one is power distance, meaning in terms of power, is it important or not in certain countries? So power distance, for example, in Malaysia can be very, very high because we respect authority. Right? That's really important, because can you imagine if you kind of like know where each country sits when it comes to power distance? It's really powerful. When it comes to social intelligence, then you can, when you go into a social setting, you know how to behave. I mentioned just now individualism and collectivism. Countries where collectivism is very important. So we're talking about Asian countries where a lot of decisions have to be made in groups. You know, individualism is not that encouraged. So Hofstede has that degree as well. So for example, Scandinavian countries where people are very individualistic, you know, they have their point of view, it would be very high. If you talk about uncertainty avoidance, there are countries where people avoid uncertainty. You know, if it's very uncertain, they probably would not want to go with, you know, innovative ideas, etc. So a lot of communist countries are usually, they fall at a very, very high sort of score when it comes to uncertainty avoidance. If I can go on, like masculine and femininity, it's all about how people behave. You know, are they more aggressive in certain cultures? And it has nothing to do with being masculine or more feminine. It's just in terms of behavior, where they stand and where women and men stand. Are they also long-term orientated when it comes to planning, when it comes to progress? You know, there's certain countries that kind of take their time and they kind of chill. So you need to understand these kind of things when you're in a social setting. So like in Malaysia, we're kind of like midway. We're also very like progressive, you know, we want to move, but we're also quite chill. And things like indulgent and restraint is another dimension of Hofstede's theory, where they talk a bit about, you know, do people love to have fun? Like if you're in South America, you're with a Brazilian, you know, they love to have parties and stuff. So indulgence is very high because they love life. Or is it more restrained where people are working and working all the time? And a lot of people would refer to places like Japan, for example, where it's, you know, yeah, we have fun, but after we work a lot. You know, and I wanted to just share that because that's a really great question from Hui Jen when she's talking about, you know, what are your thoughts? It's not just about commonalities, but what are our differences, and for us to be socially aware of that. And I just wanted to drop you these tools. I'm going to put it in the chat right now, actually, here. So everyone can have a look.
Okay.
So you can look almost any country up. You can look Malaysia, you can look Korea. There are some very small countries or, you know, that it's difficult to get data. They might not have it. But please take a look at this so that if you have, you are an international, you know, you're working with international people, this is very, very, very helpful.
Yeah, that's really great tool. Thank you very much, Alina. And for me, I wanted to add for the question from Hui Jen about, is it about mirroring? Is it about, let me read again. Is it about copying the other community, the other person? And I read a book recently, The Psychology of Persuasion, a famous book. I'm sure Alina probably might have read it in the past too. And there are 2 pillars in that is relevant to this discussion. One of that is about being like, and we like people who are similar to us. So we like people who look like us, who dress like us. So in a way, to your question, Hui Jen, it is true that if we mirror other people, then the chances are higher that they might like us. And then another pillar in this book about the psychology of persuasion is what he described as unity. And unity means that we do things that that we, as a community, we belong to. So when you're abroad, you meet someone from Malaysia, you automatically are more drawn to them. You want to find out where they're from and all that. And if in Malaysia, especially people from Penang, suddenly they say, oh, you're from Penang, then there's a strong Penang feel, or even Kelantan, right? Maybe a little bit less in some of the other state, but I would say Penang and Kelantan are very strong in terms of their state connection. And then other famous examples of community, your football team, especially in Europe, yeah, people are treated almost like religion. So when you see someone who supports the same football team as you, immediately you like them without even knowing anything else about that person. So you're right. It's not only about respecting people like you even more if you're trying to be like them. And for me, it's other example is in terms of cultural stuff, just in Malaysia, just Malays trying to eat with chopstick. Yeah, for me, I think that's already an example of going beyond just respecting, or trying also to learn. Yeah, trying also to learn and be respectful to the other culture. Yeah. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next question that I prepared. We prepared. So is there any resources, or that was one that you highlighted already? Are there more, Alina?
I think, I mean, that is the one that will really help you understand things outside Malaysia. And I think Hofstede has really broken it down through analysis. But I think in terms of sources on where people can learn a little bit more. So I am a practitioner of neurolinguistics programming. And I love using it for my training and even consultancy to help people. Now, you know, there are many things that come under NLP and neurolinguistics programming, but the simple and most powerful tools are actually found to help you with social intelligence skills. So if you, everyone here after this session, and of course you can always message me or even Doctor about what are those tools within NLP that can help you, sources. So you can always Google NLP, but a few things like matching and mirroring when you're in social settings. How can you be better at approaching people? We're talking about approaching cold people. How about building rapport, not just through mirroring and matching, but through tonality, through speed. We also have interest and hobby mirroring, for example, which is what you know, Hui Jen was talking about, commonalities. You're not supposed to fake it, but you're talking about, you know, if you love sports, for example, and I swim, for example, you know, using tools from NLP to get that conversation going is really, really powerful. And there are lots on YouTube. You know, if you love videos, there are people who can actually show you on video to do it. Or if you love reading, there's a lot of resources to help you. So Hofstede and NLP, and of course, if you want more resources, I can definitely share them. But let's just leave you with two very powerful things to help you in your social intelligence.
Yeah, thank you, Alina.
Welcome.
And from my side, I want to add that if you are, let's say you're moving to another country, I think Sheila is here, and Sheila emailed me to say that she is now working with colleagues from Japan and Germany.
Nice.
What I find really useful is to read the history of the country. So when I moved to Germany, I bought a book. You know, you can read hundreds of books. Find a good summary book of the history of the country, because it teaches you a lot about their behavior. Because that's, for me, the main thing, understanding where they come from, understanding how they think, and that already gives you a head start in terms of understanding how they work. When I moved to the US, similarly, US has a very complex history. I never realized that until I read the book. I just knew it was founded in 1776 and it's George Washington and all that, the normal Google stuff that you can read. But when I bought the book and understand more about the culture, about how it was put together, the country, how some of it are the Europeans, and then the rest, some are bought from the other countries, some are through war that they got the rest of California and all that. So it gives you a sense of where they come from and how their culture started and how they behave. And it really an eye-opening when you read the history of a country. And currently I'm reading a different book about how country deal with crisis, and they choose a few different countries. And interestingly, Indonesia is one of that. Indonesia has also had a turbulent history, which I didn't know so well, to be honest, until I'm reading this. And it makes me now understand my colleagues better. I'm looking after Indonesia this year, and it gives me a better understanding why their Indonesia identity is very strong. Unlike Malaysia, I hate to say it, but Malaysia doesn't have a strong Malaysia identity. We have a stronger cultural identity. As a country, not so strong, unlike Indonesia. And when I read the book, I understand how it came about, and now I can understand my colleagues better. So I would encourage you, if you're dealing with people from different countries now, that find a book about their history. You will enjoy it so much, and you will understand their behavior so much better as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so how can we kind of covered this already, right? That we
Yes,
are
we did.
more, we're more aware of our surrounding and looking out more for our colleagues and all that. So maybe we also discussed
I think
this.
you went backwards, I think.
I went backwards.
I think you went backwards.
Oh yeah, I went backwards. You are right.
Yeah.
Okay, then
Oh
I think we
gosh, wow.
discussed already about why we need to be better. How can we be better? So we got some specific examples that we wanted to discuss. And actually this one was the opening of our discussion on this topic, Alina. If you remember a few weeks ago, we were discussing this.
Ah, yes. Oh my. This we could go
Yeah.
on for a long time. This
Yeah,
one.
that's right. Yeah. So let's hear what's your opinion on this, Alina.
It is, I mean, first of all, let's start with the fact that this is a very highly sensitive topic, isn't it? Because a lot of us don't really know how to answer this. And I would like to, again, refer back to the safety alarm in our nervous system when I want to answer this question, right? And then going to Hofstede, for example, because that's the resource that I gave everyone to have a look at after this webinar, is first of all, because this is a highly sensitive topic, if we take a look at Hofstede when it comes to Hofstede or Hofstede, when it comes to Malaysia, right, we are actually a very collective community, culture, and which means that you follow the majority. Following the majority is highly advised. Okay. And in this case, well, the majority are those who are Muslims. And I think that's where a lot of the fear stems from as well. Because, well, there's a lot of people who say, don't eat, then I also don't eat. Right. And that's very important to understand, the majority. Yeah. Because you don't want to put yourself in situations where it's not just uncomfortable, but it could be quite dangerous for you. So that's the safety alarm part. You need to sense your intuition. Now, I have experienced things very differently, and I have very different views when it comes to fasting, because fasting for me is something that comes from me, and it's very personal, and I want things to be as normal as they are in everyday life. Whether it's someone, you know, who's just having a meal in front of me, who's just happened to have a sip of a drink in front of me as I pass by, that's how I perceive fasting. For me, I'm okay with that. So a long time ago, I'll tell you all a bit of a story. I was in brand and marketing, and I work with a lot of agencies. And sometimes in one room, you would have like 3 or 4 agencies, so like 20 people. And it was fasting month. And I bought lunch for everybody, and it was just sitting there. As I was babbling on about strategy and where we're going, everyone was just, if I could hear their stomachs probably growling, by that time. And some of them with their hands, very nervously was putting, and I'm like, what's wrong with you? And they're just like, what do you mean? Why aren't you eating? It looks like your brain is not working anymore. And everybody was like, there was this fear, right? And I was just like, look, I'm the one who bought you the meal. So please eat, because I need your brains to work. Okay. And you can see that there's this sigh of relief. And that's me, social intelligently, I think, was making the group comfortable to say, please eat, because first of all, I want you to nourish yourself so that we can work. Okay, so I made them feel comfortable, and they felt comfortable, and they can continue eating even though I am fasting. So again, that safety button in your nervous system, it's really important to use that. Now, having said that, if you feel uncomfortable, and many people are, whether you are in a multinational company, whether you're an SME or a government, company or entity, you might feel unsafe. You might feel like, no, this is not the place that orang, I'm probably the only one eating. Then in that case, you do have to take a few steps back and just not eat. Yeah, just do not eat, and find a group, like I said, a tribe, a place where you feel safe to eat. I know this is very trivial, but the way I can answer, is it okay or not, is, do you feel okay? Have you informed people around you so that they feel okay, right? Because this topic has become so politicized. It's so sensitive that no one wants to talk about it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I
So-
agree. I think it's dependent on situation, and like you said, I like what you said about, do you feel safe about it? Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And what we were discussing beyond this was about the Ramadan buffet, right? So it's so
Yes.
an extension to this, it's the what you call it, when you've been invited to a Ramadan buffet,
Mm.
then it's a little bit different. Then it's a little bit different situation that you've been invited, so therefore the host is somebody who is fasting. Then again, this is where social intelligence comes in, that
Yes.
you should wait for your host to eat before you eat.
Yes.
And again, this is I don't know what else to call it, social intelligence, really, knowing that you're at a party, if you want to call it a party, and your host is obviously you know who the host is, and she is not eating, then therefore just wait a little bit until it's azan already, and everyone can eat. Yeah.
I mean, that's great, because I'd like to share this story again with people. Oh, that's great, Zarima. So I don't mind, because your intention is is for you. So that conversation, to let everybody know, is interesting, because in this case, people didn't have the intuition. They were doing it because they just didn't know. And this is where curiosity is very important. And the word intelligence is not because, you have high IQ, but are you curious enough to get more knowledge? So for example, I'm blessed, either it's an Indian friend or a Christian friend, or, or Caucasian in that case, or Chinese friend will take me out for Ramadan meals, or bring me to their home for a Ramadan meal, which is fantastic. However, they need to also ask around, what are the behaviors that are okay? What should I do? So this is very funny, and I love my friend to bits. She's amazing, and she invited me over for Ramadan. And usually for us Muslims, by the time it hits 7, and some people 6:30, all the food is on the table, ready to eat, right? But but there was nothing ready on the table, and this was like 7:10. and there was no plate, there was no fork, I'm just like, okay, what am I going to eat? Right? So that for me, I'm cool because I'm open. It's like, maybe they don't know lah, but there is food, it's just not there. So it's really important to understand. So what should I do if I was hosting someone for Ramadan? What should I do? Because things again can be a bit sensitive, but we're close, so it doesn't matter. Or I had another example where I was at a hotel breaking fast with a lot of friends who were not Muslims, and people started drinking and eating in front of me. Now that one was borderline. I was like, hey, not very socially intelligent lah, It's like, and I'm very open, right? So it's really important to understand. But again, I don't blame people, because for decades, if anything, we have become more separated as people and communities because of, for example, religion and beliefs. So we as a country, because we're talking about Malaysia now, is we need to get to know people and communities, be curious, make friends with them, without obviously compromising on your beliefs and your values.
Yeah, you have to understand what's the, I say, acceptable behavior. And when I moved to Germany, one of the more curious thing that I learned is that when it's your birthday, you like here, when it's your birthday, you expect your boss or your team to buy you a birthday cake, right? Or take you out for a birthday lunch or something. But in Germany, if it's your birthday, it's expected that you bring the cake for your own birthday for your team.
Alamak.
Oh, okay. So that was a shock to me. I thought, oh, so not only I go there and there was no cake, they were like looking at me, where is the cake?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so all that, as you said, you maybe the first time you can say because I didn't know, but the second time you should have known already from the first time, not to make the same mistake again.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, then the next topic that we put here for discussion. This is our favorite topic in Malaysia. Is it okay to be late in Malaysia?
Wow, that's interesting. In a nutshell, it is actually okay. However, again, I'm going to go back to data. And again, when you take a look at Hofstede's theory, there are a few things that you have to take into consideration. So this is where judgment is very important. So in Malaysia, the power distance part of the framework is very high. What does that mean? Status is very important. Yeah. So if you are going into a meeting with, CEOs or people of very high stature, I hope you will be early lah. Right? I hope you'll be early, because that's very important. Because I go to functions, whether it's the minister or even royalty or whatnot, where you do need to be there at least an hour earlier. Right? So if you wait, you wait. If you have to, they are two hours late, you wait. So that's one part where I'd say no, depending on who is attending the meeting, right? But in terms of, our culture, when it comes to like indulgent, we're actually pretty chill. And on the Hofstede sort of, I think we are on the scale, we are midway, a little bit more than, I think we're at 60%, maybe something like that. So we're actually quite relaxed. And we are a collective society, which means that we like to wait for everyone to come, relax lah,
On the way,
relax lah, it's okay. Because you see, I spent a lot of my time in Europe, so I'm very Swiss sort of, timing. I remembered coming back to Malaysia and it's very intense. Bila orang tu lambat, right? 2 minutes even before the meeting, I get very, very stressed. Because I have to be disrespectful. So most Malaysians who are already kind of chill, it's okay, 15 minutes. But I would give it a time, maybe about 15 minutes. Anything more than that, they'd be like, hey, what's going on, man? So
yeah.
Malaysia, it depends.
I think like you said, it depends who the people you're meeting with and where they are from, right? Are they from Europe, from Switzerland?
Yes.
From Japan, yeah. So those few countries, you need to be on time for sure, yeah, and make sure you accommodate the traffic jam, cannot find parking and all that, because those are not really acceptable answers to those who don't tolerate lateness. Yeah. But like you, Alina, I had to adjust to this as well. When I first moved back, I'm like, oh my God.
Nice.
Malaysians are just terrible. And Nadia said the same thing. Everyone is late, but it's not okay to be late. Yeah. And Zarema added a comment there about having non-Muslim eating pork at the same table. Again, it's how safe do you feel, right? Some people do not feel safe. So again, it's about how more culturally aware we are aware about this topic with our friends and with our colleagues, really.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so the next one, I think this is probably the last questions that we have, and unless there are questions from the audience, yeah, about one of the underlying thing behind all this is I believe is what the question about, do we feel our culture is more superior than others? And this is about accepting other culture, and what's your view on this, Alina?
I think when I take a look at words such as superior, be better, or we are better, I think it stems from a lot of insecurity and fear. And already when things stem from insecurity and fear and lack of whatever belief systems in yourself, it's already not a great thing, especially when we want to foster relationships with people, being connected. So for me, when the moment people think that they're more superior than others, or their culture is more superior than others, already it's a big sign that they need to work on their social intelligence skills. Because if you have high social intelligence skills, you are very open. So, but I do understand that this exists in the minds of people, whether you're thinking about colonialism, or you're thinking about, if you're from the West, sometimes that, most Asians living on trees or whatnot, which is very real. All these stereotypes and all these beliefs, they're not good. So I do understand these are things that are going through people's minds. So what I recommend is take a step back. And this is something we should not nurture when we want to be more socially intelligent. And if you are thinking those things, and mind you, I think we all are in some ways, sometimes we look at different cultures like, oh, what's that? Ooh, that's weird. We're already judging.
Yeah.
So I would say there's no culture that is more superior. It's in our thoughts, it's in our belief systems. And again, like I said, perception is projection. The more you think that someone else is less, is inferior to you, they won't be open to you. You won't be embraced with love and positivity. You won't be invited to homes. So let's take that superiority complex out of the equation when it comes to social intelligence.
Yeah, I agree. I think my experience of being the superior culture was when I went to Africa, because they only have one word for the non-black people. They call them Mazungu, which is white people. So they call me Mazungu also. So I'm the white people. And suddenly I'm like, wow, okay. I feel white, and you know what it's like. And however, as I was living there, I was volunteering in the hospital, and you immerse in their culture, and it's a fantastic experience. Yeah, that you I live together with them. Yeah, and you learn about their food, about their culture, about how they deal with birth and death, and they're different. However, like you said, there's no one way to do things. So how they were doing it is their way, and it's no different. It's different, but it's not superior or less superior than any other. Like one of the main thing that I thought was amazing was how they really treat dead people in such a ceremonial way. That is a big event. Everyone comes to pay their respect and all that. And I thought that's a great example of community still in action, which are getting a little bit less in the other communities. But what I saw at that time was how strong the village come together to help the people who had death in the family, which was, yeah.
That's beautiful.
amazing.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Okay, then I think this probably comes to an end now, unless we have any question from our audience. Any last minute question?
Everyone's okay?
Everyone's okay. Yeah. Then I want to thank Alina today, because that was a very interesting discussion. We didn't
Thank you,
get to
Nadia.
discuss so much about the different social awkwardness, but it's more about understanding how we want to approach social intelligence, how we want to approach that situation. And for me, my key takeaway, my key word today is feeling safe for us and for the other people. And I really like that. I cannot imagine any better word for it. Thinking about it, how can I describe it better? So I think that word that you use is perfect for it, Alina. About
Thank you,
being
Doctor.
safe.
Thank you.
Yeah. And any last words from you, Alina?
Thank you again, everybody, for being here and the questions and discussion as well. I mean, I would love to do, a face-to-face session on this, and maybe, Doctor and I, we can talk and we could do some, very cool training on thank you so much, Sal, on social intelligence or etiquette.
Yeah.
I think please connect with me on LinkedIn. I would really love to thank you, Zarima, to really connect with each one of you. I know some of you have, jobs abroad, some are, building their personal brand, are meeting people, new people. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions on message, or we can talk on the phone. So, and if some of the theories and the frameworks I talked about, you might be a bit confused, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to help you. So please connect me on LinkedIn. With me on LinkedIn. I want to get to know you.
Awesome. Thank you, Alina.
All
So
right.
therefore, to end, I want to just share that some of you already signed up for my newsletter. So my newsletter, which I started a month ago, is called the Career Autobahn. And I choose the Autobahn because, as you might not know, the Autobahn, you don't have a speed limit on the highway in Germany. And what I want to get across, that your career also has no limit. It really is up to you how you want to project your career, how you want to plan your career. And my aim with this newsletter is to share my experience so that you can start planning where you want to be and how you're going to get there. And if you want to subscribe, then that's the QR code for that. And then the very last is about Alina and her company. So she has her own company called the Yellow Tree. And this is the link to the website. If you're interested to connect with Alina through her company, this would be the link. But you can also find her on LinkedIn, of course. Yeah. Okay. So I want to say thank you again, everybody. Thank you very much, Alina. I really enjoyed that discussion today.
Thank you, everybody.
And hope we can do more things with you also, Alina. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Have a good night, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. Nadia there.
Nadia, yeah. Okay, awesome. Very good.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you. A little bit low attendance today, but
Apa.
thank you very much.
That's okay, no problem. I hope, we could, again, I mean it, like if you do want to do something on this, like one of the, because I know you do like some training as well. Oh, you're still on record, but you're gonna cut the video, right?
Oh yes, yes.
Okay.
Jangan record post.